I want to briefly just open up about our Penn State United statement and patches and stickers and things like that you guys are going to see moving forward. I'm just really proud of our players and our program. Had a lot of conversations this off season, a lot of discussions that I think were very, very important. The transparency that we had, the discussions that we had, the education and the learning that was taking place in those meetings from so many different perspectives has been great. And then obviously our players watching, other teams, other leagues, other conferences, as well as professional basketball, that we felt like we wanted to do something that showed our unity. And I think that's the important thing for us, is that this is a topic that you have to be careful about, because the last thing you want to do is take part in things that are divisive. So we've taken an approach is about bringing everybody together at Penn State, bringing everybody together in Center County, bringing everybody together in the state of Pennsylvania, and hopefully being a leader in our country on this topic. So really excited about what our players and our program and staff came up with. And I think you guys will get an opportunity to see more on that topic later. But I did want to lead with that. So again, appreciate the opportunity. Excited to have the opportunity to play a Big Ten conference opponent to start the season in Indiana. Got a lot of respect for Tom Allen. I think he does a great job, and I have a lot of respect for Tom as a man. I think he's done a great job for that program. I've liked my interactions with Tom. I've liked getting to know him. We also have two people on our staff that think very highly. Greg Kincaid worked at Indiana for Tom and has got great things to say about him. And then I think some of you guys know this. Jevin, our director of video, actually Tom Allen was his high school coach. So, I got pretty good perspective on Tom and the type of man he is and the type of program he runs, and he does a great job. I think this is the best Indiana football team that they've had in my 6 years in the conference. They've done a really good job of building it. They got a bunch of guys back that have played at a high level, and obviously last year had a winning conference record, as well as obviously enough success to win 8 games and go to a bowl game, and the majority of those guys are coming back. So I think this is the best Indiana football team that we're going to face, and obviously we're facing on the road. The last couple of years have been very, very competitive games. And we've been fortunate to get out of there with a win, not only in Beaver Stadium, but also, in Indiana. So it's going to be a challenge. We have a healthy respect for our opponent, but I do feel like we're in a good place, and I do feel like we've had a good camp, I guess you would describe it. And we're looking forward to taking advantage of this week and being as prepared as we possibly can be come Saturday. So open up the questions.
First question will be Mark Brennan, Lions 247 with Fight on State. Mark?
Can you hear me now, James?
Yeah, I can. Sorry about that.
Sorry about that. I was muted. Obviously, you never want to lose a player like Journey, but how fortunate do you feel about that running backs room that you have and the way you guys have been able to recruiting? Can you tell us a little bit about some of those players?
Yeah, obviously, first of all, we want to focus all of our energy in loving and supporting Journey through this. And as you know, I'm not going to get into a whole lot, and I know you didn't ask that, but I didn't want to just move on to the other guys without talking about how proud and how much we love and support and appreciate Journey, and how much he's grown in our program, and think he has a very, very bright future. But yeah, I think Coach Sider's done a really good job of not only recruiting, but also developing at that position. There's an identity and a mentality at that position. Obviously, they've had fun with the Lawn Boys, kind of title that they kind of fall under. But yeah, we got a number of guys there, whether you're talking about Devin, or whether you're talking about, obviously Noah Kane did so many significant things for us last year. So those two guys with tremendous experience, and then two guys that we're really excited about, behind those guys with Keziah and Kevon. So, feel like we got a really good group there. Obviously, Kevon and Keziah haven't done it in a collegiate setting yet, but we do feel like Noah has the ability to carry the load, and feel like Devin has a chance to do that as well. And we'll see how close those two young guys are ready to play based on how they prepare this week. But you'd love to get them in the game. You'd love to get them in the game and see how they do in that setting. But we feel very confident with Noah, and feel very confident with Devin. And to be honest with you, Journey's had a huge impact on those guys. He's been great in practice. He's been great in meeting rooms, and I know he'll continue to do that.
Rich Scarcella, Red Eagle.
James, thanks for your time today.
Hey, Rich.
Good afternoon. I'd just like to ask you about Journey one other question. You had said previously that you know few players who have faced as much adversity in his life as Journey. What are your personal feelings for him, for having to go through whatever he's going through, and how do you think he will cope with it?
Yeah, and I think your initial statement, I think, is the important thing. I'm a big believer, that Journey's experiences throughout his entire life equip him with all the necessary tools to battle this situation as well. And he has had a lot of adversity in his life in a very short period of time in terms of his age and the things that he's been able to overcome. And that's why when we first started kind of dealing with all this, that was my conversation with him. So I know he's going to handle this thing like he handles everything else, and does it in a first-class way, and tries to stay positive and focus on the blessings. And we're going to do the same thing with him, and again, we don't know what the future holds yet, so we'll see how this whole thing plays out. But I do know he's got 120 brothers that love and support him. He is a guy you talk about, universally respected and loved by his teammates and the coaches and the staff. He's just a guy that is going to be successful. He's got, a survivor mentality, and not just survives, but finds a way to flourish under challenging times. And that's why, whether it's football or whether it's school or whether it's business or whatever Journey decides to do in his future, he's going to find a way to be successful. I mean, literally, I think about all the things that Saquon Barkley did, and I remember, his hometown had a parade for him. They should do that in Meadville, because I think Journey Brown is just a tremendous example of a young man that took an opportunity and ran with it. And I think he's going to continue doing that. I'm excited to watch, his story play out, and I'm hoping to be a part of that story with him, for the next, for the long haul.
Mike Gross, LNP News.
Good afternoon, James.
Hey, Mike.
Now that you've been practicing for a couple weeks with knowing that you're going to be playing games and knowing that there's a schedule and something to look for, has anybody surprised you? Anybody stood out where, okay, maybe we underestimated this guy a little bit. Maybe we can give him a bigger role than we originally suspected?
Yeah, it's hard to say that, because if there's really not just one guy, there's a number of guys like that. And if I say one guy, then I'm leaving out others. But I think we've had a number of incoming, freshman or junior college transfers that are probably further ahead than we anticipated. And then you have some of the guys that, maybe didn't have a huge role last year as a true freshman or as a redshirt freshman or as a sophomore that have come into their own. I guess the guy I would say is you look at Joey Porter. I think Joey Porter is a good example of a guy that last year, redshirted. I remember talking to Joey just a few weeks ago, and last year when Joey redshirted, he wasn't happy about it, and he thought he was ready. And now looking back, having this conversation with him the other day, he goes, "Yeah, I wasn't ready. I thought I was ready. I wasn't ready, but he is now." And not only is he ready now, he's really playing at a high level with a lot of confidence. And I think that's a great example where everybody's journey is different. Some guys come in as a freshman and they're ready to jump on the field right away, and other guys it takes a year, and some guys it takes 3 years. You look at Apke, who didn't have a huge role until his senior year, and then had an unbelievable, senior year. You look at Carl Nassib, and we've got so many different stories. So I think that's one of the things that I talk about all the time is everybody's journey is different, and the more positive days that you put together, then at some point, the light bulb is going to go on for you, and it's going to click, and the success is going to come, and there's going to be setbacks and adversity. But I think there's a number of storylines like that.
New Real Del, El Tunamir.
Hey, James.
Hey, Neil.
Wondering if, as you look around the country and watching the games that you have, it seems that there's really been a lot of high scores, maybe some lack of some defense that the Big Ten has played. I'm just wondering what you can learn from that going into your season opener.
Well, to be honest with you, I don't know if that's kind of an early season issue or just college football now. College football is high scoring. You look at the NFL. NFL is putting up more points than I ever remember. I think you listen to what people perceive to be really good defensive coaches in the NFL and in college, and everybody's just talking about how challenging the RPO offenses are to defend. It just puts so many people in conflict all the time. So obviously early in the season. Sometimes it's hard to tell, what it is. Is it the offenses are really good, or is it the defenses are still getting their feet under them and not enough live tackling and things like that. But we'll see. I know we have the mentality always, that defensively, obviously you want shutouts, but at the end of the day, the most important thing is to stop them from scoring, one less point than you've put on the board. And we want to play an ego-free style of football here, where, it's not about the defensive coordinator's stats or the offensive coordinator's stats or the special team stats. It's about playing winning football. And 1 week that may be, because of how our defense, plays. And 1 week that may be about how our offense plays, and 1 week that may be special teams or a combination of all three. And to me, that's what good teams do. They're going to find ways to win, and they're going to have different ways to do it week in and week out based on matchups.
Ben Jones, statecollege.com.
Hey, James, how's it going?
Hey, Ben.
I know eligibility is a little wonky this year, but where are you guys on your green and yellow lights? And does the lack of a non-conference schedule kind of change your approach? Because there's a big difference between, welcome to college football and go play Ohio State versus maybe somebody earlier in the year.
Did you say Indiana?
Indiana, excuse me, Indiana.
Gotcha. Yeah, so we haven't had our normal, red, green, yellow conversation. I am going to meet with the freshmen after practice tonight because we started getting some questions, and that's one of the things I think you have to be careful of as a coach is you kind of assume things or take things for granted. There really is no red shirting this year because this year doesn't count. So literally, if you need to play a guy, you play a guy, whether that's one rep or whether that's one game or whatever it may be. And that could be in the middle of the season, at the end of the season. So everybody needs to be preparing as such. So I'm going to have that conversation just to clear it up with all those guys after practice today. But overall, that's our mentality as a coaching staff is there's really no discussions, about redshirting. If we can get everybody a little bit of experience, we would love to do that. if we need a guy, to play late in the game or late in the season, we have the flexibility to do that. So it's just allowed us to open our roster up, and that may be, a luxury, some weeks, and it may be a necessity other weeks, based on how we continue to handle this COVID challenge. So, right now we're fortunate. Come Tuesday, knock on wood, I don't know if this is wood or not, but come Tuesday, everybody's available for us, and we want to make sure, I'm talking based on COVID, everybody's available for us, and we would like to make sure that, hopefully come Saturday, we're in the same circumstance. But obviously by testing every single day, that can change quickly, and I just want to make sure that we have the right amount of respect towards this virus, and that we don't let our guard down. And hopefully come Saturday, we're in a similar situation where we have everybody available based on COVID.
Frank Bodani, York Daily Record.
Hey, good afternoon, James. Thanks
Hey,
for your time. Sean Clifford, do you have maybe an example of how you think he's progressed coming in as a returning starting quarterback, as a junior? Something you think you've learned from his progress from the end of last year to now?
It's funny, you just made me think of, I was coming over here, I was walking downstairs, and one of the meeting room doors was shut, and I poked in to see, I saw the film going, I poked in to see who it was, and it was Sean. And I think I scared the heck out of him. He looked up and saw me peeking through the window. But I think, and I've said this before, I think sometimes where you kind of have an off season and you look at your season and you say, okay, on offense, defense, or special teams, or at a position like quarterback, you say, okay, we were really pretty good in these areas, but we were really deficient in this area, and we need to get better. And I don't know if that necessarily was the case with Sean, in terms of he had a glaring area that we needed to really focus on. So obviously that's a positive, and really what you're trying to do is just trying to kind of, continue to grow and get a little bit better in every area. And, that's fundamentals. I know Kirk spent a lot of time on fundamentals, which at the end of the day, this is a fundamental game. And then I just think as a quarterback, sometimes there is value in playing for multiple coaches. Now, don't get me wrong. Obviously, you don't want to live in either extreme where you see some of these guys in the NFL or in college that have played for a different coordinator every single year. You don't want that. But I do think there's value in playing in schemes that have a slightly different emphasis. And different approaches of the coaches. You're gonna learn stuff from Ricky Ronnie. You're gonna learn different things from Kirk Straka. So I do think there's value for Sean in that, and I think they've worked extremely well together. So for me, I don't. There's not one thing that really jumps out. I just see him much more comfortable in the pocket. I see him much more comfortable in terms of his leadership and interacting with his teammates. I see his movements and his efficiency in his movements much better. I see him more accurate consistently in practice. And I think you guys know we chart everything. So I got all the data. I got the completion percentage from practice every single day. I got the interception percentage from practice every single day and cumulative. I got the explosive play percentage. We track everything. That's guys catching punts. We track it all. And that's what I've seen for him. I saw a really good college quarterback last year who continues to get better in every single area, from leadership to mechanics to understanding situational football and understanding his role.
Joe Giuliano, Philadelphia Inquirer.
Hello, James.
Hey, Joe.
You'll be leaving your campus bubble this weekend to go to Indiana. What is your degree of concern about going on the road finally? How's your routine going to change from your normal road trip? And are you going to be flying out the day of the game?
Yeah, so there's a lot of changes. We'll still leave on Friday, but we typically eat on the plane. We're not eating on the plane. We're going to eat beforehand. We don't want to be taking our masks off on the plane. Same thing on the buses. Our hotels were staying much farther from our from the game, so we can get the biggest hotels possible with ballrooms for team meetings and meals. We typically eat by position and those types of things. We're not going to be able to do that because we're going to break all the tables up and the pairings up. Single rooms for the players, not doubled up. But really, my two biggest issues that I covered this week is I know talking to a program, which I won't say who, but a program that had a hard time here recently. One of their biggest challenges that I was informed with was the players that stayed behind. So we've had a lot of discussion about the players that stay behind and stay in town, that they're going to have to be disciplined and sacrifice that weekend. So when we come back, that we don't have any issues with the non-travel. And then I think the other thing is I had a parent meeting on Sunday night, and I told them, well, that was my one concern. I said, what do you think my other concern is? And they were like, I don't know. And then one of them was like, us. And I go, exactly. We've been able to control so many variables and got into a pretty good routine that, we're going to have to do a great job once the Big Ten allowed parents to come to the game, which I think is the right decision. But we got to do a great job of managing that now. As many of the parents that could get tested, that week before they come, them wearing their masks, them social distancing. Because again, we heard of another program that had a few positives, and that's what it was from. It was from a dinner after a game or an interaction after the game. So again, I'm just trying to educate as many people as I possibly can on our process and our protocols and our policies to try to keep everybody as healthy as we possibly can, number one. And then obviously, it's important that these guys, they want to be able to stay on the field and compete. So that's part of it, obviously, as well. So there are a few examples, Joe. But it's pretty much everything is different. The same thing with the locker rooms. You're not going to be able to get everybody in the locker room. So we're going to have to do it here at Penn State, provide some extra area for the visiting team as well as the home team to split guys up so you don't have everybody in the locker room based on the size of your locker room. So we're trying to account for everything, Joe. But, it's a challenge. And there's no doubt about it. We've done a good job with our bubble here in Happy Valley. Knock on wood. We got to continue to do it. The week's not over. We got to do it all week long. And, but there are going to be some new elements added to our routine this week by going on the road.
Heather Dinich, ESPN.com.
Hey, James, I wanted to ask you, just based on what you've seen from your team to this point, what's your gut feeling about how good you guys can be this year?
Well, yeah, I think I've gone away from the whole gut feeling thing a long time ago, 25 years in this business. There's been times I've been out there in pregame and I say, wow, we are ready to play. And then it doesn't necessarily play out that way in the first quarter or vice versa. So, to me, it's I've been confident with our process, how our coaches have handled things, the level of detail, the communication, the situational football that we've talked about and worked through. Same thing with our players. There's been a very mature approach. There hasn't been those days where you feel like you got to pull it out of them to practice the way you need to practice. Guys are flying around, having fun. There's a real sense of appreciation, I think, of being out there. I think for a lot of our guys, especially the upperclassmen, I think there was a sense that we may not have football this year. Something that they love dearly was taken away from us. I think there's a sense of appreciation that it's back, and we're thankful for that. And I do think we're a talented team. I do think we have a significant amount of depth, more than we did a few years back. We're just in a much different situation from that standpoint. But I also know there's really talented teams in this league, including Indiana. I think this is the best Indiana football team that we have played by far. And I think Tom's done a great job. I got a tremendous amount of respect for him. So, this is a tough league. Our side of the league is tough, is really tough. And you better be ready to play week in and week out. And Indiana has played, they've won a bunch of games and they've played a lot of people really tough. And you better be ready to play. You better have all your T's crossed and your I's dotted, and you better have the right mentality when you play Indiana.
I could ask
Travis
a quick
Johnson. Oh,
ask a quick follow.
go ahead, Heather.
It's been almost a year basically since Big Ten teams have played. Since a lot of teams has played, about 10 months. So, is there anything you can do as a coach to shake off that rust fast, or it is what it is?
Well, I do think, and you hear coaches talk about this all the time, when you're opening with an opponent like Indiana, I do think it changes your team's mentality and approach a little bit. I do think that's part of it. And then I think the other thing is how you practice and how you prepare. I mean, obviously there's nothing like playing a game where, it's live and there's no tempo tag off or thud or whatever it may be. There's really no, there's no supplement for that. But again, I think the things that you can control in getting your team as ready as you possibly can, with not taking on a significant amount of risk in terms of live periods and live practices and things like that. I think we've done that. Now we got to go out and do it. It's easy for me to sit here and talk on a Tuesday, because Heather, I know you'll be on the press conference last week and say, "Well, Coach, you talked about it, it didn't happen." But I'm confident, and that's what I told my staff this morning. We have a staff meeting every morning at 7 a.m. I said, let's make sure that our meetings today and that our practices today leave us leaving the field, Tuesday evening, confident that we've done everything we possibly can. So come Friday, I want to sleep well Friday night. I want to wake up Saturday morning feeling confident and as relaxed as possible. I know everybody's different like that. Some people, no matter what you do, they're not going to sleep well Friday night. I'm going to. And I want our whole staff and I want our players to do that as well, because we know we've done everything we possibly can to prepare and be ready for this game and go out and play like a team that appreciates the opportunity to play in the Big Ten and compete this year when we didn't know if that was going to happen.
Travis Johnson, Associated Press.
Hey, James.
Hey, Travis.
What value do you see in your top returning receiver being a tight end? And what would you hope some of these young wideouts would take away from either watching Pat on film or, paying closer attention to, what he does in practice?
Yeah, I think in my mind, it's both, Pat Freiermuth and Jahan Dotson. Those two guys have played a lot of football for us. So to me, both of those guys are playing a leading role in how we practice and how we prepare and how we compete. They're both, I wouldn't say they're both overly vocal guys. Pat will put out some grunts and yells and things like that, but he's not necessarily overly verbal. And Jahan's the same way. They're more guys that lead through their actions and their demeanor. And but I think both of them have done a really good job of doing that day in and day out in practice and in the weight room and meetings and everything else. And I think we got a talented young group of wide receivers, and I think we have one of the best tight end rooms in the country. And I think Jahan and I think Pat are a big reason for that. Their leadership and the example that they set every day. And we're going to need them to. We're going to need those two guys to have big years for us and continue to raise the level of those groups and build confidence in those guys.
Audrey Snyder, The Athletic.
Hey, James, you were teeing me up for a wide receiver question. How has your opinion maybe changed as that group's progressed throughout preseason? And what has Parker Washington done? We see him listed at the top of the depth chart today.
Well, I think a couple things. I think one of the things that's really good is the iron sharpens iron kind of mentality that we have. I think we're as good as we've been in the secondary. There's a lot of confidence in our depth at safety and our depth at corner and even in the nickel stuff. So I think the battles that those guys have had at practice every single day is going to make both units better. With Parker, he's a very mature young man. He's a very smart young man. The offense kind of makes sense to him, and he can kind of connect dots with some things. He's got a mature approach to meetings and practice. And then, you're going to see him. He's almost built like a running back in a lot of ways. And he's got elite ball skills and body control. Me and Clifford were talking the other day out of practice. He caught one-handed. And usually when a guy makes a one-handed catch, everybody goes crazy. But he's done it so many times that it's almost like it's the expectation for him now to make those types of catches. And you got to remember too, we're not a program that really approaches one-handed catches. We don't want them to catch the ball with one hand, only when, there's no other option. And he's done it, multiple times in the appropriate situation. I think that's one of the problems in college football that I see nowadays, and even in high school, is guys want to make the basic catch look exciting. They want to create a basic play into an ESPN highlight. And, the reality is the great ones like Jerry Rice, they make every play look easy and natural. And there's going to be a time where you got no other option. That's the only chance you're going to have to go make the play. And we get that. And those are the things that we've seen from Parker. I think the quarterbacks trust him, that he knows his assignments and he's going to be where he's supposed to be. And he's been great in contested catch situations because I do think he has elite ball skills. And I'm interested to see his run after the catch ability again, because he's built like a running back.
Bob Flanders, Penn Live.
Bob?
Hi, James. Thanks for your time.
Yeah, no problem. How are you?
I'm good. James, I wanted to just ask you your thoughts on the linebacker room going into the season now that it's game week, obviously replacing 3 starters, including Micah. And specifically, what are your expectations for a young player, Brandon Smith, this year? He looks like he's really physically developed since he's got to State College.
Yeah, I think the group you guys are going to be very impressed with. And in my mind, I know we lost guys, don't get me wrong, and we're not undervaluing those guys. You look at the guys we lost and what they're doing, in the NFL, or what they have the ability to do in the NFL is exciting. But again, we've done a great job at that position from a development, from a recruiting standpoint. I look at Jesse Luketa as a returning starter in my mind in terms of the number of plays and experience that he got. I look at Lance Dixon in a similar way. I look at Ellis Brooks in a similar way. And Brandon Smith. And then the 2 guys that I think are new that we're excited about in terms of, their role and level of experience is Charlie Catcher, who we're excited because we think he creates flexibility that can play multiple positions. And then Curtis Jacobs, was a highly recruited young man who's come in and flashed and done some great things for us. Obviously would have loved to have spring ball with all these guys. At every position. But we do feel like there's a tremendous amount of talent in this group. Jesse's leadership has been impressive. His vocal leadership and running the defense, same thing with Ellis. And then when you see Brandon is just like, when you guys see him, he's unbelievable. I don't know if you guys have seen him walking around campus or around town, but when I get off the bus, he's going to be standing right next to me.
Tobias Wilborn, Pittsburgh Post-Gazette.
Hey, Coach Franklin, how's it going?
Good, Tobias. How are you?
I'm doing as good as I can in the pandemic. But from there, we talked a little bit about Journey, but just for you, what do you miss? What would you miss about having him as the man, not the player, but as like the man that he is becoming, is having him every day?
Well, we're not going to miss that because Journey's going to be with us. None of that is going to change. He's going to the games, and again, this thing isn't decided yet. Based on the statement we put out and kind of where we're at with everything. So this is still to be determined. But the man, we're not losing the man. I'm never losing Journey the man. Journey's going to be a part of my life forever. And his leadership on our team is significant. His leadership on our team is needed. His energy, he's been phenomenal. I mean, I don't know if you guys saw in the video the other day that we put out, Keziah had this great run. You know, if you watch closely, one of the guys that was the most excited was Journey Brown, you know, running down the field and hugging on him. So he has been phenomenal and will continue to be phenomenal. But we're not losing, you know, Journey the man. You know, Journey the man's going to be with us and will always be. So, you know, we're fortunate because that's the thing that's most important to me is you know who he is and what he represents for our program.
Hey, can I follow up real quick?
Sure.
I just want to make sure I understand. So you're saying there could be a possibility that maybe he might at some point play in games, possibly?
So I will read the statement to be clear again. I think we put it out. It says Journey Brown is being treated for a medical condition discovered during the offseason and will potentially miss the 2020 football season.
Donnie Collins, Times Tribune.
How you doing, James?
Good.
Wanted to ask you about the two backup safeties. Jonathan Sutherland, Jesse Luketa said this morning he was the perfect guy to wear the number 0. Why do you agree with that? And also, how has Jair Brown impressed you guys?
Yeah, so starting with Jair. Jair is a very mature young man, is a very, very appreciative young man. You know, you look at Lackawanna Junior College and what that program has done in terms of preparing him for this opportunity. You know, he's come in and really understood what it takes to be successful here. I think he's also a young man, obviously, you know, from the area, from Trenton, New Jersey, and he's just very appreciative of what Penn State has to offer. He's got a very business-like, mature approach. And because of that, he's gotten better, like literally every day in the weight room. He's gotten better in meetings. He's gotten better understanding the importance and the impact of special teams. He just continues to get better. And I think we're very excited about him. Got his hands on a bunch of balls, you know, during preseason, what you call it. It seems weird saying preseason or camp. You know, we've been, you know, doing it, you know, during the school year in the fall, but I guess that's what it's been, you know, and then it's funny because you talk about Sutherland. You know, I had so many guys that wanted that number 0, you know, that were, you know, they all like, I was the first one to ask you for number 0. There's like 8 guys that said I was the first one to ask for number 0, but literally they were all texting me and calling me about why they should have number 0. And when me and Coach Lori got together, we just thought this was a really good way to continue to emphasize special teams in our culture. And we're not a program that gives it lip service. We truly, you know, want to be great in all 3 phases. So it's funny, you know, after the announcement was made and Sutherland got number 0, all those guys were like, you know, I'm disappointed, but I get it. You know, it's Sutherland. It's hard to argue with him. You look at the number of reps that he played on special teams last year and how he graded out and just his approach and his mentality and his demeanor has been awesome. You know, so the other thing that's kind of interesting is, you know, Canada is turned into a really big area for us. I mean, we have 2 captains from Canada. And we have, you know, obviously the you know, number 0 award, you know, nominee or however you want to say it is from Canada as well. And I know his mom and dad reached out to me and are just, you know, just so proud of not only what their son's doing, but how, you know, how this whole Penn State experience has gone for him so well. So, just really proud of those guys. But yeah, they were all just like, all right, we get it. You know, we wanted it, but it's hard to argue with Sutherland.
Last question for today. I'll go to Elton Hayes, CNHI, Pennsylvania.
Good afternoon, James. Hope you're doing well.
Hey, Elton. You too.
Well, Coach, I wanted to ask you about Indiana player Wap failure. I remember last year heading into the game, you were very complimentary toward his skill set. You got injured, had the head injury earlier in that game, didn't play much, but he's a pretty dynamic playmaker, one of the best in the conference. Just wanted to get your thoughts on what he brings to the table to that Hoosiers offense and how you feel your secondary is equipped to handle him.
Yeah, I think he's a big reason, why we feel so, and I feel so strongly about Indiana, and what Coach Allen has built there. He's a playmaker. He's a playmaker that everybody in his conference is going to be concerned about when you play Indiana, and whether that's him at wide receiver or whether that's him in punt return. It would surprise me if they use him in kickoff return this year. I know he's motivated. I've watched some interviews already. He's motivated for this game, especially with missing most of last year's. But we have a tremendous amount of respect for him and this whole program. So we're going to watch a bunch of tape on him and be prepared. And that's why we got to do good on good every single day at practice to make sure that our DBs are going against our starting wide receivers at least every single day to get that speed work, so that by the time Saturday comes, we're not shocked by the speed of the game. That's where that's important. The scout team or developmental squad looks, are important, so you can get, as close to the looks that you're expecting to get from Indiana. But there's also that speed element of always having some good on good work in practice. That's going to be important to try to prepare, for a young man like him.